Welcome back. Time is 7:43. The FBI and Statesville Police Department are investigating what they call a possible hate crime. This photo shared by Statesville Police shows a doll hanging from a street sign with a rope around its neck.
The doll was positioned above an election sign for Doris Allison, who's the Ward 3 City Council representative. There's a picture of it right there. Property owner told officers they believe the doll was intentionally placed at this location to target Allison. The doll and materials used to suspend it have been seized as evidence.
All right, this comes as political violence is top of mind for millions following the assassination of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk, among other things, of course. So we're going to bring in Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes to talk about this case. So what hate crimes laws do we have on the books in North Carolina? There are two states that don't have them, but North Carolina does.
North Carolina does. Ethnic intimidation is the first one. I mean, but you could file this under a number of things, but that's probably the most applicable one. I mean, we've had those type of cases here before in the past. What was it, 2024? Most recently convicted in federal prison for hanging the flag, Nazi flag, burning crosses, doing a number of other things. The federal government picked that up. But 2001, we had a defacement of the MLK statute. They charged him with the exact same statute with that ethnic intimidation. So I think that's the most applicable race-specific one. But then you'd have communicating threats, you have trespass, you have harassment, you have stalking. I mean, there's a laundry list of charges. Ironically, most of these are all misdemeanor charges. It only takes that elevated felony level if it gets to the federal government. And even in that capacity, it still has to be a number of things. If it's just threats, if it's just, verbal, then it would only be a misdemeanor even on the federal level. When you're looking at just 1 year, you need something else connected with that to get it to the federal level, to the felony level, I should say.
So when you look at this, we just had there in the story that the materials have now been taken into evidence. How do you prove the intent when you look at this? Like what type of evidence will they be looking at? And then when they see the evidence, how do you know the motive of whoever did this?
I think the motive, and this is like a TV law drama, motive is something that the court doesn't really anticipate or utilize when coming to a conclusion. If you put something before a trier of fact, either a jury or a judge, motive isn't something that comes up. But it plays out well in movies. Typically, intent is what you'll look at, which is something different. Did you have the intent to harass? Did you have the intent to target? Did you have the intent to intimidate these individuals? So you have a couple of things that historically in this country have had intimidation connected to race, voting specifically, in the hanging of a person or the hanging of a doll to intimidate folks from voting. So you can make that logical connection that this was for that point, and the courts have done that before in the past. If you connect hanging of anything or burning of a cross at any time, clear-cut intimidation connected to race. So I think the logical step would be what was their intent. And I mean, it wasn't your intent to play a joke, because you wouldn't have hung a doll by the voting side. And there were millions of other places. Statesville isn't that big, but it isn't that small either.
All right, we know Allison's part of the protected class since she's African American. I do want to ask you, Khalif, though, what is the difference between stepping it up to a felony charge and a misdemeanor? What do you have to prove?
Well, North Carolina, there is no felony component. It's just if it gets on the federal level, it's if bodily injury results, if there was a dangerous weapon, if there's fire, there's a number of things connected. That's why with those cross burning ones, that's where you get that 10-year enhancement as opposed to a 1 year on the misdemeanor. If you're burning a cross, which in the South, in this region, this has historically been an issue. And so they had laws put in place on the federal level because states, as you guys mentioned, multiple states don't even have this, and they weren't enhanced enough. Yeah, you get a misdemeanor slap on the wrist, no one's worried about it. You come through with the Department of Justice, and I tell you now, for burning a cross, you'll get a 10-year prison sentence. All right, that changes your whole thought process on doing it back to the detriment, or I should say the deterrent, as opposed to, the rehabilitative portion of criminal law. We're going to make sure we deter this type of action from happening again. That's something that was there for sure.
What does the investigation look like, and how hard is it to prove any of this with this being hung on a street sign, right, seemingly in the middle of a road? What are investigators looking at specifically with the FBI to prove that someone did this?
Well, first of all, I mean, everybody has a camera nowadays. You got ring cams, you got video car cams, you got all kind of things. And so they're asking for tips, they're asking for information. Those are the types of things where they'll piece it together and say, all right, let's go back a week, let's go back a couple days, and let's look for the person that put this out there. And then once they find the individual, now let's look at their social media. Are they making these types of comments where they're threatening or harassing this individual? And this is just the next step. Okay, I was here making comments online. Now this online has went to a real life scenario. Now can this be elevated even further? And that's what they want to avoid. We don't want to have this situation go from you hanging the dial to now you're knocking on their door. Those are the types of things where you can catch this now and stop something further from happening.
All right, we'll continue, I'm sure, with the story as more details come out. Cleve, thanks.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.